If I was a director of football overseeing the recruitment at Manchester United, mid to long term I would primarily be focused on building a squad that can compete for the 2025-26 Premier League title, the season after next, and these are the players on top of Euro and Xerxes that I would sign for United either in the last month of this transfer window, in January, or next summer's transfer window. So Andre Onana of course in goal, I'll leave the backup keeper for now. At right back I'd have both Diogo Dalot and Mazraoui, right-sided centre-back would be one of Diomande or Euro, with Ousmane Diomande also able to play across the back four, someone who I'd liken to Jurrien Timber or Ricardo Calafiori in terms of his tactical and positional versatility. Lisandro Martinez or Luke Shaw would be my left-sided centre-back options, as I think Harry Amas alongside Reguilon as a backup option to Ferdi Kadioglu gives United a pretty good backline in terms of not just quality and depth, but also tactical versatility alongside that depth as well. Dalot and Kadioglu can comfortably play either at left back or right back, with Kadioglu being very two-footed, and Dalot's ability to invert in field and provide ball progression from central positions maybe actually being better from the left side, where naturally he's going to be angled towards goal as he looks to come inside and use his right foot. But having both Dalot and Kadioglu starting at fullback alongside Martinez and likely Diomande initially with Euro as the third choice option will allow Ten Hag to make tactical changes in game, without having to make a substitution. For example, let's say United come up against a back 5 defensive shape that uses an incredibly narrow midfield and front line, in say a 3-2 shape ahead of the 5. Well, it may actually be beneficial to use Kadioglu on the left and Dalot on the right, so that both players will naturally be receiving the ball with open postures, with Kadioglu being better at receiving the ball with his left foot than Dalot, who does prefer to do this on the right side, as this would take them down the flanks, exploiting the space that the opposition's midfield has vacated by only using 3 rather than a 4 across that line, from where United's fullbacks can look to either create a 2v2. Ahmad, Rashford, Sancho and Garnacho when he plays on the left all definitely need someone who can provide that movement ahead of them, and with Dalot and Kadioglu doing this from fullback and Mount and or Bruno Fernandes providing this movement from the half space, this should work to either provide forward passing options in behind the back line into chance creating or goal scoring positions, or drag the opposition's wing back, centre back and central midfielder on that side away, allowing the wide attacker to cut inside either into a shooting or a chance creating position in and around the box. But what I really like about Kadioglu, Dalot and Mazraoui as fullback options is that all 3 can function in multiple different areas of the pitch, whether this is in the half space, the outside of the fullback, or narrow in front of the opposition's forward or midfield line. All 3 are capable of operating in this incredibly positionally versatile role. Who would I be looking to bring into United's central midfield? As I would argue that at the moment that is United's biggest vulnerability. If we go into the season with Casemiro alongside Mainu and McTominay, Eriksen and Collier as the alternative options, we aren't going to start the season well. We need someone who not only has the press resistance to drop to the edge of the box alongside Mainu and play out with quick 1 and 2 touch bounce passes, but also a ball winner who out of possession would provide the aggressive pressing and tenacious tackling ability that Ten Hag's 4-2-4 pressing shape requires. Manuel Ugarte or Amadou Onana would have been perfect for this role, and considering Onana cost Aston Villa £50 million, that's probably what United should be paying for Ugarte, especially given that that is the amount that PSG signed him for last season. And also, I think that given that Sancho earns around £7 to £8 million more than Ugarte's £5 million salary at PSG, a direct swap with PSG for Ugarte would be a lot more complicated than you may think. Sancho and Ugarte are probably both worth around £50 million in today's market, and so realistically United should be trying to offer Sancho in a swap deal. Sancho has 2 years left on his United contract, so if PSG take him on a current base salary of £13 million a season, then Ugarte coming in at £7 to £8 million is still saving about £5 million a season, £10 million over the course of the 2 remaining seasons on Sancho's contract. And I think that would be a good deal for United if Ugarte for Sancho was a direct swap, as I think Ugarte is a much better option than most other players on the market. Well, apart from 2 players who United may have to wait for until next summer, but there are 2 others who United could get this summer who actually might not cost more than what United are able to sell Casemiro and McTominay for. But before I tell you who those 2 options are, if United aren't able to get Ugarte for £50 million or less, if United could pull off this transfer, why do I think that Ugarte would be an incredible asset in the press? And Ugarte actually reminds me of a young Casemiro at Real Madrid, someone who kept it simple in possession, being an efficient circulator of the ball, but primarily being there to break up the play and win the ball back, being a tenacious, aggressive front foot defender who also excels physically and athletically, which Casemiro in 2024 definitely doesn't. And I think you could argue that given Ugarte is only in his early 20s, 20s, he does have the potential to not be necessarily a better version of Casemiro, but certainly a more evolved player, already being significantly better than Casemiro at playing out of the defensive third under pressure with his back to goal, and actually being someone who I think has the potential to be a line-breaking playmaker of sorts as he develops his game further. Now statistically, Ugarte certainly isn't doing this as much as you would like, ranking slightly above average for his passes into the final third, and below average for most of his other progressive passing and ball carrying metrics. However, his pass completion rates are incredibly impressive, in the 90th percentiles or higher for a lot of those metrics, and from watching Ugarte in the Champions League for PSG last season, I think you can see that he has the ability to split the midfield with a line-breaking pass, but at the moment he's just not consistent enough with his output. As Amadou Onana said in a recent video, just because a player isn't doing something doesn't mean they can't do something, and I definitely agree with this, particularly with Amadou Onana in this particular example, as in a more possession dominant side, I think he becomes significantly better as a player, and with Ugarte, I think in Ten Hag's high turnover direct style of play, this could actually help him, as like N'Golo Kante, Manuel Ugarte's value stands out specifically when it comes to him breaking up attacks and winning back possession in the middle third. And this is also why if PSG are charging too much for Ugarte, and Casemiro isn't drawing the sort of interest that we would expect from a lot of the Saudi clubs, with European clubs definitely not picking up his wages, I think United have to go to Al Ittihad and offer Casemiro in exchange for Kante, which is making the best out of a potentially very expensive situation. See, Casemiro this season will be on a base salary of £18 million a season, which over the next 2 years on his contract would be £36 million. Kante at Al Ittihad only signed a 2-year contract last summer, worth £86 million a season, and so he may be willing to cut his stay in Saudi Arabia short, having picked up more than 10 times what he was earning for Chelsea before 2022, where he then leaped up from £7.5 million a season to £15 million a season in his last year at Chelsea. And remember, Kante reaching up to £10 million with realistic add-ons such as appearances and Champions League qualification, alongside bonuses for trophies as well, may be up to a total of £12.5 million a season. And that to me sounds like a deal Kante might accept, as he doesn't strike me as a Neymar type who is always worried about earning the maximum amount of money. Just one season in Saudi Arabia more than sets Kante up financially, and so I definitely think he would consider a move to return to the Premier League with one of the big six. Casemiro can surely be valued around the same amount as Kante, given that we only signed him for £60 million or so just 2 years ago, and given that Al Ittihad only signed Kante on a free last summer, valuing him at around £20 million at 33, the same amount as Casemiro at 32, sounds very reasonable to me. Also, Al Ittihad wouldn't have to pay Casemiro £86 million a season. They'd probably only have to lightly improve on Casemiro's £18 million salary currently, so even if he earns £30 million a season, they'd still be saving £56 million just next season alone with this swap deal. So United would break even on a transfer fee and make around £8 million in savings from the salary for each of the next 2 seasons. And I don't know about you, but from his Euro 2024 displays, I would much rather have Kante for the next 2 seasons compared with Casemiro, even considering that the former Chelsea man is a year older. Alongside Kante, I'd also like to bring in Mandela Keita, who I think is on loan at Royal Antwerp from another Belgium club, OH Leuven, and I have spoken about him in previous videos, as Keita to me, like Ugarte to Casemiro, is a more evolved version of Kante, an aggressive, tenacious, high-volume ball-winning midfielder who is a lot more press-resistant than Kante, and I think he's a better incisive passer through the lines as well. Keita is 22 years old, and despite having made a few impressive appearances in the Champions League, he has only played 37 games in the Belgian Pro League since the start of 2023, and so I think it would be beneficial if Keita came in as the third-choice alternative central midfielder to both Kante and Kobbie Mainoo, being able to play either role. And having watched him domestically in Belgium but also playing for the Belgium national team, I think his talent is clear. Statistically, in all phases of play he excels, whether this is defensively in terms of his tackling and reading of the game, in possession when progressing and retaining the ball with his passing, or his ball carrying and dribbling output, as well as his overall press resistance when receiving the ball with his back to goal under pressure. And this is why, from a potential point of view, I rate Keita so highly, and I think he'd make the perfect long-term starting partner for Kobbie Mainoo, with someone like Bruno Fernandes also in that centre of midfield. And Keita would surely only cost around £20 million, which is at least £5 million less for what United should be at least getting for McTominay. So to conclude, in an ideal world, I'd be selling McTominay for around £30 million, getting about £20 million plus all of these wages off the books for Casemiro, maybe even just letting him go for £15 million, alongside shifting in Christian Eriksen's massive wages as well, bringing in around £50 to £55 million in terms of transfer fees, alongside getting nearly £30 million off of the wage books as well. From here, if you can get Ugarte for between £45 to £50 million, then not only could United do that deal, but also bring in Mandela Keita for a maximum of £20 million. Although if PSG are holding out for more than £50 million for Ugarte, and no one seems interested in Casemiro, then I think United have to try that swap deal with Kante, as it could be the only viable option on the table, as United categorically cannot go into the season with Casemiro as a first choice alongside Kobbie Mainoo.